Dungeons and Dragons, the long-time hobby for tabletop-loving nerds everywhere. Whether you play it or not, it's changing. So, should we panic? Nah. Hey everyone, and welcome to Dungeon Bits, and I just wanted to sit down and talk with you about change. Changes of editions, changing games, and changes in attitudes. Change always feels weird. There is security in what we know. We don't like the unknown. But, you know, all cosmic horror themes aside, change is normal, and DandD has changed editions many times already, and it's probably going to change in the future again. This isn't exclusive to DandD, by the way. Pathfinder is on its 2nd edition, and Starfinder's 2nd edition is currently in the works. That means that my Starfinder book on the bookshelf is going to be useless soon. Or is it? I made this video in part to address the comments that I've heard from people being unsure as to what's going to happen next, and to address those comments from people who I assume they think that I've never considered this before somehow. You don't have to change. If you like DandD 5e, then you can just keep playing 5e. There are people who play the 4th edition still. Hell, there are people who play the 1st and 2nd edition still. And there's some people that play third-party games that proudly admit this is just classic editions of DandD repackaged with our name on it. If you think people are gonna move on while you stick to 5th edition because you don't like the new changes or you just can't spare the cash, I've already seen comments in a bunch of places saying that they're not gonna move on from 5e. You're not alone. So that's one option. Be among those who stuck with the game that you like because you like it. Nothing wrong with that. You are the consumer, you choose where to spend your money. You don't have to change because the game is. The other option, of course, is to adopt the changes. We won't know how backwards compatible the new rules are going to be until the books fully come out, but the change probably won't be as dramatic as you fear. We're not changing whole editions, we're just kind of shifting a bit. And to address other comments, I think you'll still be able to play 5e through D&D Beyond, but let's look at what we know. And this isn't going to be like a complete breakdown because it's not out yet, but the Champion Fighter subclass has had a buff, okay? The Barbarian has had brutal criticals taken out, okay? And the Berserker doesn't give you exhaustion now. It just gives you a buff to damage rather than another attack instead. The Zealot Barbarian isn't the invincible force of nature that you could consequence-free revive anymore, which was my only reason to play that subclass, frankly. The Bard can dance if they want to. They can let their friends benefit from the evasion feature with them. The Great Old One, Warlock, has been changed so I can actually play it without feeling like the class equivalent of erectile dysfunction with all of these psychic powers and secretive illusions and enchantments. Somehow we're back to cosmic horror. The Druid doesn't get to change into animal stat blocks anymore, they just turn into a set stat block that can either walk, fly, or swim, and it gets better as you level up. Think like the Summon Beast stat blocks. But for you, that change will be polarizing, but I'm kind of fine with it. Now you can turn into whatever you want through flavor, and you don't need to battle with the weird question of, have I seen a weasel before? And also, I've seen Druid players just not use their wild shape because of how complex it was, so yeah, I'm fine with it. But the Paladin! Oh boy! The Paladin changes have made everyone online take an oath of vengeance against WotC. I've not seen people be this mad since the OGL crisis. The Ancient Paladin's aura, that's hard to say, gives them a resistance to select damage types, instead of just magic in general, and the thing that's been filling Reddit right now is the Smites. If you've not heard yet, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but Divine Smite is now a spell, like all the other special Smite spells, and that means it can be silenced, counterspelled, used only once per turn, and can't be used during your reaction. This is a massive nerf to the class that was once one of the hardest hitting classes, but is it that bad? Because Counterspell has changed, so now it's not just instant, no spell, no smite, it's left down to a con save, which the Paladin will probably succeed. And as of right now, we don't know how the rest of the game has changed. This change might make the Paladin more balanced, but it's undeniable that the smite has been turned from the every time I hit, I kill feature to being used less and countered more. And hey, to some DMs, this sounds like a blessing. The OP Oathbearer being balanced some more? Great. Now it's actually a versatile knight instead of just a walking doomsday weapon that could cast useful spells, but won't. Those are SMITE slots after all. But this is why it's so hard to talk about this. To some, the nerfs will be an injustice that fills them with fury and rage. But it's all subjective, and I'm not the type to defend WotC on anything simply because of the game, but it's complicated. So what's option 3, right? Like, you can either keep going with 5e, or you can adapt to the new stuff even if it's not all great. Or you could not play D&D. There are plenty of games out there that are just as good or better than D&D. I have games on my shelf and those that I bought as PDFs that I adore. RuneQuest, Dragonbane, Call of Cthulhu, Pathfinder, Starfinder, Vagabond, Old School Essentials, Morkborg. I would happily run or play any of these games. But I know as much as anyone else how hard it is to find people who want to play games other than D&D. The only tips I can really give is to join forums, discords, reddits and groups wherever you can and see if they want to play other games. And if they say yes, but they don't know how to GM, then watch some of these videos and be the beacon that you wish there were more of. Inspire the next round of GMs with your own flavour of fun and your own GM awesomeness. And with all that said, just a short thing before the end. Changing attitudes. More specifically, what were your thoughts on the decision that WotC made to change the term race to anything else? How did you feel when they removed ability score bonuses from your choice of race? What about the Mexican orc art? Ability scores from your background and not your race? Nature versus nurture. A half-orc raised by a wizard is probably going to live an inside life and not be as strong as the human warrior just by default. And people would answer, well, there are some races that would be biologically stronger, like Goliaths. Okay. What about the guys that get bonuses to mental stats? What does that mean? How ready are you to say that some races are just biologically smarter? Because that sounds like a spooky topic to me. Also, is anyone else just really disappointed whenever they see people getting mad that people with disabilities are being shown as characters in their combat fantasy games? Just a wee question. Why don't disabled people have the same right to be represented? Oh, they can't fight a dragon. And you can, Greg. You get winded walking to the car and eating food. Just as a tiny point, have you seen the amazing feat of athleticism performed by those in the Paralympics? And why do I need your level of physical ability to cast Fireball, or use a blaster, or a crossbow, or a gun? It's a world of fantasy. Disability access is not an impossible leap of imagination. Games are being made to make people feel more welcome. The game isn't being changed to restrict you or to exclude you, white person. In fact, it's the same game still. The game hasn't changed. Look, if you can't enjoy things anymore because it doesn't outwardly share your opinions on race, disability, gender, or sexuality, then you can still play the game, but just place your restrictions wherever you like. Or even better, drink paint and fuck off. Thank you for watching. I'm Ellis, and if you like this video, why not click the video on screen to prepare for any game like a pro, regardless of what game or how it's changing. I love you all, and I'll see you next Saturday.